Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Interference with Wichita Wingnuts manager Pete Rose Jr. Fan Interference is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Wichita manager questions about the Wingnuts, baseball or sports in general, or just seek Pete's wisdom about life events that are going on out there. In this week's episode, Pete talks to us about how surprised he was that Laredo dropped from the American Association. He provides some tips to help youngsters improve their game. And Pete tells us whether he would drink beer with urine in it. Let's get right to Fan Interference. Let's welcome back Manager Pete Rose. Pete, we're just a week away from the season, so let's first of all start with team updates you might have for us.
Let's see. Shane Holzer got signed by the Orioles, so we lost our third baseman. So I think TJ's going to come in and play third, but that's really the only team updates that we have. We got pretty much everybody in camp. Everybody's healthy, and knock on wood, but. We look okay. I think it's still early to tell, but guys come in hungry and guys are working hard, and we'll see what happens next Thursday. But I like the way we're shaping up.
You added a couple of pitchers over the last week, Colby Suggs and Danny Moskowitz. So how do you see them fitting in?
I remember Danny from last year when he pitched for Laredo. I think he shoved it up our rear the one game he pitched against us. So maybe see him maybe fitting in maybe as a fifth starter or give him a chance for it. And don't really know much about Suggs. I know he's from Arkansas. He's a hard thrower, so he's probably going to be a bullpen guy. But there's a couple guys that I really haven't seen. Obviously being here for a couple days. We started Saturday, so 3 or 4 days. But I like what I see. I mean, I think we got a good group of pitchers that are obviously going to fit with our position players, which I hold in the highest regards. Just because basically everybody was here last year with the exception of Zach Fisher, but I've known Fish. He played for me a couple years with the White Sox, but it's shaping up pretty good. It's going to be a good competition here in spring training to figure out who the fifth guy is going to be, and who's going to take over the bullpen spot. So let's wait and see.
Before we head into fan questions, you had mentioned earlier on a couple months ago about Luke Robertson retiring. I hear you hired a brilliant young man to be the new pitching coach, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we brought Cap in to be the pitching coach, and I think it's a perfect fit. He's a local guy, pitched at Wichita State. He's great personality, great with the guys. It was a no-brainer, and I think it was just a matter of time before they made it official. But we couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier as a manager to have a guy come in and just kind of take these guys under his wing and just kind of go from there. I mean, towards the end of last year, he's kind of picking my pocket, so to speak, as far as just being around and just kind of getting, the sense of the game and how everything else works. But it's baseball, and, he's played for a while. He knows what he's doing. And, just like our position players, I'm going to try to stay out of his way and let him do what he does with the pitchers. And I think once he does that, we'll be fine.
Well, let's head to fan questions. First of all, we have Jack from Wichita who says, what team or teams do you see as the biggest threat in the league this season?
Obviously, all of them. I mean, you just don't know who's back, who's going to be back. But I don't really worry about that. I just worry about what we're going to do, and then we're going to be on time, and we're going to play hard, and whatever else happens. I've never been one guy to look forward towards a series or a team or what have you. So I'm sure a lot of the teams that were good last year will be good again, and it's a really good league. I mean, it's balanced and it's really good baseball. So, I'm not going to sleep on anybody. Not that I did last year, and I don't want to get in this year. But I'm sure a lot of the same teams will be as good as they were last year, and I'm sure the teams that weren't as good will probably be better. So, I don't worry about that. I never have, and I just worry about what we're going to do and see where the cards fall. It usually works out for us.
Barry from Wichita would like to know, he says, since you already have a pretty good idea of who will be on the team and most of your guys are familiar with each other, what do you look to accomplish during spring training?
You look for guys to come in, obviously one, stay healthy, two, get their work in, get in baseball shape. But we got to figure out some pitching moves as far as spots in the bullpen and our fifth starter. Other than that, you just try to stay healthy, and we have 4 games. We got the Friends University game tomorrow. We play Gary this weekend. Then we got Winnipeg. So just guys come in and get their work in. Everybody came in shape, which was good. You kind of knew they would. Just trying to get out of spring training healthy and get ready to ring the bell on Thursday and figure out what we're going to do pitching-wise.
Bruce from Alden asks, he says, I have always wanted to know what it is like. I mean, the feeling that you have when you catch the last out that gives you a division title or a championship.
There's no other feeling like it. I mean, I guess with the exception of my 2 kids being born, I mean, that's the feeling you want to have. But it's not so much for myself. It's more so for your teammates. And I think that all the great teams, everybody else is happier for you, and you're happier for everybody else. So I think that's the thing that it's not so much the last out or the ring. It's the whole year build up, and you get close to guys, and your favorite teams that you played on, and it probably ended up winning just because you guys were so close. But it means a lot, not only as a player, but as a manager. And we came up a game short last year, and I felt bad for our players more so than anybody else. But you're happy for them, and speaking as a manager, you want all the success and all the accolades to go to your players, because they're the ones that are out there doing it. I mean, they're putting the work in, they're fielding the ball, they're throwing the ball, they're hitting the ball, they're pitching. But it's a great feeling, and hopefully we can see maybe at the end of the year, maybe that could be us this year. But we're just going to look forward to the 18th and play against Salina, and we'll throw it out there that night, and hopefully we'll shake hands after the game.
Did you combine the two when your kids are born and hold your kid up like that?
No, I didn't. I wouldn't have been able to do it with my son. He came out with a football helmet, so I don't. But no, it's definitely doesn't come close to that. But if you're gonna have to try to explain it, it's kind of like that.
Next up is Ben from Augusta, who says, "Were you stunned by the news about Laredo?"
I was. I mean, from talking as many times as we've talked, I enjoy it. I like Laredo. It was one of my favorite places in the league. I mean, we went there 3 times. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to miss the 14-hour trip. But when you get down there, I mean, the ballpark's really nice. The hotel is fantastic. The people at the hotel are first class. The places to eat, you got a whole bunch of different places to eat around there. So I was stunned. I'm going to miss it. I mean, they had, their players last year. I got along great with them. You have, Abel and Phipps and those guys, and actually, enjoyed, conversating and talking with Pete. I mean, I've known Pete for forever, and it was a great place, and I look forward to going back, except the 14 hours, but. I'm kind of disappointed they're not going to be there just because of all I just said. But I'm not going to hate it. I mean, just because we don't have to get on the bus. But I was definitely shocked by it.
John from Wichita, commenting on that, says you must be thrilled about no more long trips to Laredo.
We still got long trips, but that one right there, it's and let's not get it straight. It wasn't the schedule makers that took that bus trip away. It was actually the legal stuff or whatever they say. But I'm really happy about that, just because nobody wants to get on a bus for 14 hours, and you expect your guys to get down there and play that day. With going in and taking a 4 or 5 hour nap and getting up, it's just it's not fair to the kids, and I'm not going to miss that one bit at all.
I would think you wouldn't have minded Laredo, but 3 times a year.
Yeah, and the thing, like last year, we went down there just for Laredo and back. We didn't stop at Texas on the way back, or going, at least this year as a schedule before it all happened, is we were scheduled to go to, I think, Laredo first and then hit Claiborne on the way back, which is okay. It kind of breaks it up. But last year was, they were just bad trips. I mean, down there to play 4 and back, down there to play 3 and back, down there to finish the year for 4 and then back. You can hit some other spots, but we did that last year with Fargo. We went to Fargo and passed Sioux Falls, Sioux City, and Lincoln all coming back, and Kansas City, and didn't stop. We just went to Fargo and come back, and I guess this year we're going there, and then I want to say it's Kansas City, and then maybe Texas. But just to go down there 3, I don't mind going 3 times, but if we could break it up and hit the 14 hours first, and then stop somewhere on the way back. But last year was brutal just because it was there, play, and then right back home. So. I'm glad it's out, man. I'm glad that the 14-hour trips, I don't have to maybe take it once to Winnipeg as opposed to 4 times.
That's a whole lot better. Well, from Salina says, do you see Salina creating a great rivalry with Wichita?
I was asked that question today, and I don't know. I mean, last year everybody was trying to sell me on the Laredo-Wichita rivalry, which I don't know how that is even a rivalry. I remember going down there and it said rivalry baseball on the scoreboard. So, yeah, if they want it to be, I guess. But, you talk about rivalry, you talk about Bengals, Steelers, you talk about, Giants, Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox. You talk about those kind of rivalries. What is it, Manchester United or Liverpool and Everton or whatever it is. I mean, you talk about or Chelsea. That's or Chelsea and Liverpool. I mean, those are rivalries, but it's close, which is good. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're not gonna we're not going to put too much into it. We're just going to go out and play hard and be on time. But if they want to do it, that's fine too, I guess.
Simon from Joplin would like to know, he says, isn't it sad that any time a guy starts hitting home runs that the first response is to think that he's on steroids?
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I mean, to think, the guy, Eric Thames from Milwaukee, I think he's been drug tested more than anybody ever has in a season. In the first week, whatever happened to just a guy getting a chance and working hard and getting off to a great start. I mean, why does it always have to be something about that? I mean, you still have to hit the ball and you have to do everything else, and give the guy some credit, man. I mean, he's come back and he played in Korea for I think 3 years or whatever it was, and give him some credit. He's having a heck of a year. He's got off to a great start, and how about we just say he's just a really good baseball player, and I think that that people should start doing that and give the guy some credit.
Let's talk about him. Carl from Chicago talks about Eric Thames had 11 home runs when he sent in this question. He'd like to know, is it real power or a product of facing the Reds so much early on?
I think it's probably both. I mean, I forget what the number was. I think it was 8 or 9 or 6 against the Reds early. They got a young staff. He caught the wrong team at the right time, so to speak. I mean, if you watch his swings, they're not wind dated. They're not. I mean, he's not only hitting home runs, he's hitting doubles, he's hitting line drives. He's just locked in. So I think if they would have played a different team, if it was the Pirates or the Cardinals or the Giants, I'm sure it would have been the same exact thing. But it happened to be the Reds, and they do have a young staff, and they're trying to get their feet underneath them as well. But I'd say it's all Eric Thames. I wouldn't say it was just the Reds. I think it wouldn't matter who they were facing, to be honest with you.
An interesting thing he talked about was the fact that in South Korea they throw a lot more curveballs, and that's what he was having trouble hitting, and now he can hit it well.
Well, that's the thing. It's when I was playing, you always went to Mexico in winter ball to learn how to hit breaking balls, because that's all they threw the import guys. If you're looking for fastball, if you couldn't hit the fastball, you go Dominican, just because they're known, there, or Venezuela, because they're looking for hard throwers. So, but yeah, over there, being a big guy, the Korean league, they do throw a lot of breaking balls, and they'll try to pitch around guys. So, in order to help him hit the breaking ball, help his eye at the plate, and from what I've come to understand, he's always been able to hit the fastball. So, but boy, he's locked in, man. I'll tell you what, it's great to see. I mean, a story like his, basically giving up on him, went to Korea, come back, and now he's on pace to, hit 77 homers or something like that. So, more power to him, and I hope he has an unbelievable finish to a great start.
Miguel from Topeka asks, he says, I was listening to a broadcaster for the Cubs-Red Sox series say it had a playoff atmosphere. In April? Come on, man.
I'm trying to think on what game that was. It was, I think it was the Cubs or something. I mean, it can happen. I mean, it's funny. Not the same. What they're talking about is I took my son up to watch the college basketball college teams practice before they played in the tournament, and we watched Michigan, we watched Jacksonville State, we watched Louisville, and then Kentucky walked out on the floor, and it's just a different atmosphere. I mean, the seats filled up. There's more media people. It's just an atmosphere, and I think that what they're talking about is you get your Chicagos, you get your Yankees, you get your Red Sox, you get the Cardinals. Places that sell out all the time. It is like a playoff atmosphere. I mean, it doesn't mean as much, but whenever you got a packed house, it always feels like a playoff game, as opposed to playing in front of 10, 15,000 in a half-empty big league park. So you can have it in April, but it's not the same thing as playing in October.
Next is Trent from Wichita. He says, what happened to some guys like Bryce Harper that they have such a huge year, then struggle for a year, then are right back hitting again? Is this mental or what?
Definitely mental. I mean, you got to realize something. The hardest thing in baseball is to kind of do the same thing. I think if you have a really good year and you come back the next year, if you hit 40 home runs, well, I want to hit 50 this year. Why not just go out and hit 40? I think that's what happens with guys with so talented like him is, he'll try to do too much and he'll kind of get him in a funk. And then, once you're in that, you kind of forget, what's happening. You go home, watch some video, as they say, and kind of get back to just being yourself. But he looks like he did 2 years ago, and I think it's just a matter of guys going out and trying to hit 50 home runs instead of just go out and hit your 40 and hit guys trying to hit 400 as opposed to 350. Just go out and hit your 350 and do what got you there. And I think he's doing that this year. But it's so mental that people that have never played won't really understand it. It's the hardest thing in sports to do is to hit a baseball. And if you're thinking about other things as opposed to you versus him and trying to just make some solid contact, then your success rate's probably not going to be too high.
Are those kind of expectations things they put on themselves, or is it media's on them, or how does a guy decide?
I think it's from my experience, it's being put on by yourself. I mean, if you go back and you hit 40 home runs, you go back and think, okay, you're talking 10 at bats. Is there 10 at bats that if I could have just did something different, I could have hit 10 more homers, or let's say you hit 10 balls. If you're playing at Coors Field, they're home runs as opposed to flyouts in San Francisco. So I think guys do it to themselves. But, it's in a good way if there is a good way. But, I don't really think the media has anything to do with it. But, you coming off, when guys come off really, really strong years, it's tough to just do the same. You always want more and you always want to do more. Being a baseball player and an athlete, you always want to try to do more for your team. And I think that's where it gets everybody in trouble.
Bob says, I hear a lot of players and managers talk about a radar gun used at a game being inaccurate. Why do they have them if they are never right? Isn't there a guy whose job it is to keep them accurate?
There's a computer, but I think they do it for the fans. But 90's 90, 93's 93, 94's 94. Once you get to 95, it's hard. And you talk about guys like Chapman and the super hard throwers, and that's another level. But I think they do it for the fans, just because the fans like to see the radar gun light up. But my experience is every big league park, the radar gun's probably 4 to 5 mile an hour higher than it is, let's say if you're here with a scout or whatever. But they usually set it up on the net or behind the thing, and they just kind of give readouts and post them. So I'm not a big radar guy, never have, and probably never will be.
Heading to Pete's favorite subject, John from Cincinnati would like to know, what did you feel about the Bengals draft choices?
Rueben Foster was there they took Ross, which I guess you can't really, not picking because of his speed. He's just super fast. But I've all along would have loved to see Rueben Foster right next to Tez Perfect and Nick Vigil. I think that would have been a great 3 linebackers. But Joe Mixon, what a great pick, man. I mean, the guy's a beast. And, guys are allowed to make mistakes. I mean, I think if you listen to him talk, who wouldn't want to give that guy a second chance? I mean, you watch ESPN, and those guys murdered that poor kid. They're perfect, and nobody is perfect. We're human, but what a great pick for him. I think he's going to help us tremendously. And you listen to Stoops and all the guys that played at Oklahoma. He was one of their favorite teammates. All the guys looked up to him. You listen to him talk. I mean, he's super polished. He's going to learn from his mistake. And I was actually excited when they drafted him. I thought it was a no-brainer. But I would have liked to see, hopefully Ross will prove me wrong, but I was looking forward to seeing Rueben Foster in a Bengals uniform. But, he's in San Francisco, so, we'll see what happens. But I was happy about it, and now it's just on a mini camp for them, and hopefully they can get back together and get us back in the playoffs.
Hal from Oklahoma City had asked about him directly, and how people don't give a guy like that a chance. I mean, I think about when I was 18 or 19, the stupid things I did.
Sure. I mean, it's life. It's part of growing up, and it wasn't so-called. I don't think it was domestic violence. I think she might have said, not condoning it by any means, but guys and women as well, you're allowed to make mistakes. I mean, that's what America's good. We're giving people second chances, and I think one mistake, I don't think it's going to kill you. You start doing it 3, 4, and 5 and 6 times, well then there's something going on. But time will tell. I mean, I'm looking forward to him putting on a Bengal uniform, and I think he can step right in and help. I mean, he's a beast on the football field. But I mean, that should tell you right there. I mean, you got in some trouble in 14, and Bob Stoops kept him around, and I think that shows what type of character he was. And I'm just looking forward to it. But I'm with you. I think the people that run their mouth about it, they're probably least perfect. But they'll say that they're perfect. But everybody's got skeletons, and I'm just happy for Joe to be a Bengal, and I'm going to do nothing but root him on.
It's easier to point your finger at somebody else than look in the mirror.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. It's nobody was in his shoes. I don't think anybody would want to be in his shoes, but you got to commend him for the way he's handled it, and he said all the right things, and like I said, it is just time will tell. But I think the best will come out in Joe Mixon, and like I said, I'm really happy he's a Cincinnati Bengal.
The one guy too that you always talk about that's such a class guy is. The head coach in Cincinnati, if he likes this guy, then
it's and if you think about it, and nobody, I think the NFL Network guys said it, but it's a perfect atmosphere for somebody like that. You have guys that have been in trouble, with the law, so to speak, and how they've handled it. I mean, it's a perfect spot for a young kid to go in there and learn from guys that have been through what he's going through and kind of help him through it, so he doesn't do it again. So, you got to tip your hat to the Bengals for, hey, taking chances on guys that, guys are right off. Like, if you're that talented as a football player, you're just not going to play football just because you made one mistake. And, I think that's wrong. I think everybody deserves a second chance, like we just said. But, to go be around guys that have been in trouble, so to speak, with the law, I mean, I think it's an ideal situation for him. And, he's going to do nothing but grow and get better as a person.
Gene from Derby would like to know, is getting a hitting net a worthwhile purchase for his son?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I was never allowed to hit off the tee growing up just because the balls never stopped. So my dad would always say, well, golfers don't hit a rolling golf ball, do they? I'm like, no, they hit it off a tee. Well, we hit ours from a dead stop, and I understand if you don't have anybody to hit with, but a hitting net's a great, side flips are fantastic. I have one at home. Me and my son, we'll go downstairs and do some side flips. We don't hit off the tee. We got a little Max BP machine that throws a little wiffle balls, but anything you can get to kind of help out your kids, whether it's baseball, soccer, we got soccer nets, we got basketball hoops, we got all kinds of stuff. But I think it's definitely a great purchase, and as long as you're willing to put the time in with them, it'll pay off for you.
Our next question comes from Chuck from Wichita. He'd like to know if there are ways to improve your bat speed.
Keep your body out of the way. I think once you learn how to use your base and not get out in front, your hand speed will pick up. But you've heard of guys, swinging with, donuts and weighted bats and stuff like that. I think that's probably the only way you're going to be able to, get more bat speed. But I've never really heard of like a certain thing. But I know that, I used to swing with a donut on all the time, or like a heavy bat, a lead bat, swing an axe. Or sledgehammer, stuff like that. But if you can learn how to keep, hit the right way and keep your body out of the way, your hand speed will pick up, and then, your body will come behind your hands, and that'll make your bat speed quicker. But, they got these, I think they got like a little hitting jacket system, it's called. My son has it to where it has like little things you put on your bat to where you take swings with it that's a little heavier, and then you take it off and, it feels lighter. So I think I would go, you maybe swinging a bat weight or something. That might help.
I watch guys, kind of loosening up before games, and they use those kind of stretchy rope things that you can, resistance ropes or whatever.
Sure.
Is using something like that beneficial?
I think it benefits more throwers as opposed to just trying to get your arm loose. I think I don't know if any hitters actually use that. I know I never have. I would swing like a donut, a heavy bat donut or whatever, just like on deck, just trying to get loose. But I think it's more for guys that are throwing, just to kind of get their shoulder and their arm kind of loose.
Our next question comes from Lyle. He says, I am trying to teach my son a little about playing baseball. He is just 6. Can you provide me a little help with how hand position on the bat can affect swing?
They say to line your knuckles up, but I was never taught that. I just grabbed the bat. I mean, you got to remember, I was old school, obviously the way I was taught, but you don't want to choke the bat, just for a simple reason. If you get jammed, it's really gonna shock your thumbs and may give you a bone bruise in your thumb. And for a young kid, that may make you hate baseball. So because they hurt. I mean, they hurt as big league players. But if you can try to keep your the bat in your fingertips, I think that's going to help you out a ton. But just watch. I mean, I learned watching a game of baseball, and I think if it's a big league game or coming to our game or whatever it is, the more you watch, the quicker you're going to learn, and the more stuff you're going to learn about. But as far as hand position, just make sure it's not kind of choked back in your hands. And I think if you do that, it's kind of out in your fingertips, and it'll help you a ton.
Billy would like to know, why do announcers say that when a batter fouls a pitch straight back that he just missed it? I never really understood that.
It's the whole thing is if let's say a left-handed hitter's fouling and you pull a ball foul, well you're early. If you hit a ball to the left side, well you're late. Well, if you foul it straight back, it means you're right on it. Your timing's right on it. You just kind of maybe just tipped underneath it or whatever. So that's what they mean by by a guy being right on it, because it went straight back. If you square that ball up, it's probably going to be hit probably back up the middle or somewhere hard. But guys will be out in front or they'll get jammed. So I think that's what they mean when they talking about guys just missing balls.
Our next question, Pete gets the couch out. So we start with Worried Wife, who says, my husband is on the road a lot for work, and I worry about him cheating. As a baseball player and manager, is it hard to resist temptation? I am sure a lot of women tempt players, and I want to know how hard it is to stay faithful.
It depends on your significant other. I mean, it's really not that hard. If you're with your soulmate, I mean, that's what relationships are about. But obviously there's people out there and temptations, and not just baseball, but in everyday life. You can go to the gas station and what have you. But I think it depends on the person. But it's really not that hard. I mean, you just gotta know what you're about, and know if it's about your family or whatever, your wife or whatever it is you're trying to do. And if you just kind of go in it, go at it that way. But on the other hand, being a wife, I think you got to trust them and just say, hey, you got to do what you got to do, and I'll see you when you get home. I mean, I think that's a big help, because if you don't have trust, it's not going to work anyway.
I would think the people you hang out with are...
Sure. I mean, it's the whole thing, guilty by association, or you are who you hang out with. So, obviously, if you're going to be at a nightclub late after games, you're probably going to have a better chance as opposed to just going back and getting pizza and staying in your room. But, I think those days are... well past me. I'm 47 now, so I'm more for the pizza and come back and FaceTime with the kids or something. But you're right. I mean, it's nothing saying you can't go out and have dinner or go out and have a drink or seven after the game or whatever. But you're right. I mean, the people you hang out with, the place you hang out with, that's going to be a big factor. But if you got somebody at home that's going to trust you and let you, hey, do what you got to do, and I'll talk to you when you get home, I think it makes it that much easier, as opposed to somebody sitting there worrying about this and that and everything else. I think I would have that way as opposed to being hounded all the time.
Brent from Wichita says, they say that opposites attract, but my new girlfriend and I are like polar opposites in so many ways. Can that work?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's for good chemistry. I mean, nobody wants to go out with somebody that knows exactly the same thing as you do, or if you're talking, you're finishing sentence. I think maybe after 20 or 30 years together, then you can start finishing sentences. But I think at the beginning, obviously it makes for good conversation to figure out, why you're so opposite, and you have stuff to talk about. But, it definitely can work. I mean, I've seen it work a million times. I mean, I've seen it not work, but, I mean, it can definitely work.
Our last question this week is from Tyler. He says, there is a beer in Switzerland that one of the ingredients in the beer is urine. Pete, I love beer, but...
Yeah, you're going to have to pass on that. I would probably do the same thing. So, yeah, we'll pass on the beer from Switzerland.
Thanks for joining us, Pete.
You got it, man.
We want to thank Manager Pete Rose Jr. for joining us on Fan Interference this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita manager, please send them to us at askpete@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's askpete@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give Pete... Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give Pete a little time to review them before the show. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report. We'll see you next time.